Well, Romantasy has exploded over the past few years, but why? Why are millions of readers becoming so emotionally attached to these stories, relationships, and worlds?
Hello, and welcome back to Minds Over Magic, where psychology meets romantasy. We're your hosts, Katya and Catherine, and today we're
Hey.
joined by the author of Veins of Power, friend of the show, and simply a
Woohoo!
wonderful human being, Becky
Yay!
Jane Fox. Hi,
Oh, hi.
Becky.
Oh, I'm so happy to be
Hey.
here.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad we're finally doing this. So how have you been? I feel like every time I open Instagram, something exciting is happening in your world.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. I think I've got the book here with me. I just got the new hardback. Yay!
I love
Yay!
it. I
Oh, it's
love the new
Thank you.
gorgeous.
cover. It's
Thank
awesome.
you. It's been out for about 3 months now, and it's just been amazing. The support and vibe from the community has been great. I've gone from, having no book to signing with one of like the top New York agents out there who's representing other books like Diabound and Quicksilver, which is just crazy.
That's
And I think
amazing.
we're about to hit 10 million reads on Kindle Unlimited or something. Yeah, and I've just
Wow.
signed a contract for a super excited limited edition that I can't wait to actually be able to share because right now I'm not allowed
Yay.
to.
So cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that you designed the cover as well. I mean, the original cover was also your design, and
I
this
like
one
this.
as well.
Yes,
I
yes.
love the
And then
original
you open
cover
it, it goes
too,
red.
because I have that.
So this one you open up and you get the red inside.
Oh,
Awesome. I love the dragon scales, and it just like looks so. It's like really looks like proper texture.
it's nice. Very nice.
Yeah. So on today's episode, we are not discussing any one book in particular. Instead, we are finally going back to something we promised many episodes ago. We're going to try and answer one big question: why romantasy?
But before we begin, a quick reminder the podcast is intended for mature audiences. Minds Over Magic may include discussion of adult themes, strong language, violence, and sexually explicit content, especially as they relate to romantasy novels we cover. So listener discretion is advised.
So here's how today's episode is going to work. I came up with a list of questions, and all three of us are going to answer them from our own perspectives. Becky as the writer, me as the reader, and Catherine as the psychotherapist. So, are you ready, ladies?
So ready.
Ready as I'll ever be.
No pressure. So, the first question that I have on my list is what is so special about romantasy? And as a reader, I would say that for me, I think that it's fantasy first. Like, I've always loved fantasy and adventure stories because my brain just loves imagining something completely different. Like, worlds that don't exist, or magic systems, or danger, or, a quest, political drama, something exciting. And then romantic stories on their own usually don't pull me in the same way. So if they are set in the real world, is just not really my thing. But when you combine both romance and fantasy, then suddenly those emotions just feel amplified. And I mean, this is just my view, and I know I have friends who love reading romance, but I don't know. So I always read fantasy when I was a teenager. There was something I loved Lord of the Rings, and it was exciting. I loved the love story there as well, between Aragorn and Arwen. Even though I think in the movie they showed it better. So when I heard about this, little book called Fourth Wing about a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Dragons, like that's something that I'll enjoy. And that pulled me in, like the story and then the romance there and everything. And then since then, it was just for me nonstop. And I think it's the combination of those two. What about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when I saw the question because it said, why romantasy? So I thought, well, why not just fantasy? Why not just romance? Why not another genre? Like, why is this hitting really well for a large group of people? And as I've dived into more understandings of storytelling and things, what really compels and drives a story forward is conflict, like tension and conflict, and always trying to think about, even like within the book, but I write in scenes. So I follow a very sort of more like screenplay scene writing process when I write my book, and everything's cutting to these scenes. And throughout those scenes, there needs to be constant conflict. And I think when you're writing maybe more contemporary romance or a different genre, it's very hard to constantly be creating conflict that feels authentic to the world that they're in. So I always think about, like, I used to love Gossip Girl, and like I'll still binge watch it. But when you think about the conflict in that show, it becomes very repetitive and almost annoying, because to have the conflict, the characters have to make really frustrating decisions. So I think with fantasy, you can just have like you can just have a dragon suddenly show up, if you need some conflict or some magic or something. And so it really keeps that forward momentum within the story. And then when you add the romance to it, it's just sort of like, a very dangerously addictive combination.
Yeah. I agree with you, because when I think romance, I'm thinking like Hallmark movies for some reason, like something very cozy and something very simple. And oh my God, I'm just going to be so criticized for saying that by people who love romance.
I love romance, by the way.
But you love Hallmark movies as well.
I do. I love Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
They're my favorite.
I wouldn't necessarily sit down and read it. Like, I'd watch it, but I don't think I would want to read it, if it makes sense. Like with the Hallmark movies. Like, I don't mind them for Christmas. That's fine. Okay.
I haven't tried any. I'm curious, but I've seen some good ones out there.
Watched any? I haven't tried reading them because
I've watched. I love a good rom-com. I love a good, come home for Christmas. But like in terms of the reading,
no. No, yeah. Well, you hit on something that's really important, Becky. That's conflict. And I was just thinking of the Hallmark movies when you talked about conflict too. So it's funny how you brought that up, Katya, because people in general, I've noticed the more I talk with clients or others that have in relationships or in different types of relationships, we don't like conflict in real life. People run from conflict in real life. Yeah. Real life conflict can threaten relationships, safety, belonging, self-esteem, stability. It's very personal, right? And so people tend to run from it. Even in businesses, I'm constantly talking to leaders about having those difficult conversations with employees or with other, employee to employee or students to, other students. And so Romantasy, what it does, the conflict's usually tied to emotional intensity or attraction or transformation or vulnerability, and then eventually resolution. So as in rom-coms, they always have this conflict as well, but they're very good at talking through it. And, the ex is always okay with the new boyfriend, or it's like, oh, wasn't going to marry you anyway. Or, sorry, it was a misunderstanding and I just left early. There's a lot of that going on, but I think in real life, it's always a little bit more difficult. Whereas in the book, it's that drive to see the conflict come through, because in real life, it's very vulnerable for us.
Yeah. That's
to me,
true.
that makes sense.
Yeah, because I know a few people who took specialist courses on how to actually be in the conflict, because they would just avoid it, not just at work, but the family, and then it just builds up. So yeah, I can totally see that. And I never would have linked, conflict and romantasy, but it's very true. Yeah. I think maybe that's why I love all these like badass characters, there's women, like Imogen or like Rhea, actually, Sorry, I hope it's not a spoiler. Who can just like turn around and just say, off you go. But it's true. It's true. I think I learned something new about myself.
That's funny.
So our second question is, why do romantasy relationships feel so emotionally intense? And I think we kind of started answering that, right? I generally think that romantasy characters are often much more emotionally expressive than people in real life, right? Like regardless of the setting or the tropes, characters in Romantasy openly talk about their feelings, their fears, their devotion. Everything is emotionally heightened. Like, everybody's just talking about it, which is like totally normal. And some actually laugh about that, saying that's part of the fantasy. And then we also have our favorite tropes, I suppose, right? So like people actively look for books with specific tropes they love, like slow burn or enemies to lovers or like morally gray characters. And if you're reading something that already emotionally works for you, of course, then the experience is going to feel more intense. Well, that's how I feel. Like one of my favorite tropes is slow burn, and I would actively look for slow burn books because I know that will, trigger something in my brain. I'll be like, oh yeah, this is for me, and then it reads obviously like very intense. That's exactly what I want. When you're writing, do you think about the tropes? Do you think about what people would enjoy, or are these tropes that you personally like?
A mix. So
Okay.
I don't know if this is normal for an author, because I think, and I try and think of authors as artists, and sometimes there are a lot of artists and authors that are just creating art for themselves. They need to get it out, and whether the world likes it or not, that's up to them. Whereas I come from that more sort of business background, and I want to I'm creating something that's helping myself right now, but I also want to have it as a product that other people really do enjoy. So I'm constantly trying to think, what would my readers, what would the community like? And I'm not going to if they want it to turn into a completely different genre, it's not going to happen. But things like tropes are really interesting. So little micro tropes and things. Yeah, if I can integrate something in an authentic way within the story, like I'd love to do that. So I think in book one, I didn't know that, I was starting to learn about all the tropes and things. And there was the one bed at the inn trope that just seemed to like dominate. And then there was a moment in the second book where actually it just fit perfectly in a kind of different way. And so I was just like, oh, this is great. It's like tick it off, but it just sort of, as long as it happens naturally, if I can put it in there, or if I can do it I love to take a trope and try and put a little bit of a different spin on it. Is always really fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite trope?
Me? Yeah, an enemies to lovers, but I don't know. I'm terrible with favorites in general. I don't know what this says about me and from a psychological perspective, but if someone says, what's your favorite color, food, I like a buffet. I'm a buffet person.
Difficulty making decisions. Okay. I'm just kidding. Okay. I'll remember that when I'm reading. Okay. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Not going to get to the point very soon. All right. We're going to going on. No. I like it. I love the book. It's good for me. It works. Oh, your favorite trope was enemies to lovers.
Yeah. Well, to write, but it's interesting. I think I'm just exploring so many at the moment. So I'm just loving all of them. Buffet.
Yeah.
One of those Las Vegas buffets where they're all.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, then it keeps you on your toes too. When you don't know, especially if you have a lot of different ideas, then the reader is not going to be like, oh, this is what this author technically writes about her.
Yeah.
And that's what Katya would say, because I don't read as much as she does. I think people need to come away feeling either understood or comforted or emotionally have that release or hopeful or less alone or more connected to themselves. So sometimes I think that's how they connect that with therapy as well. So I think having these, the different themes or the different tropes, they tend to, if they feel that way, then they're going to lean to one that's going to make them feel a certain way.
I wanted to ask you, there are a lot of jokes about this romantasy books and therapy. When people, there are a lot of reels. I love them, where people go to a bookstore and they pick up like an Akata, or one of whatever book, and they will move it from romantasy to self-help section. And basically treat it as, saying like, I thought I needed therapy, but actually I just needed to read this book. Like, what is it? I mean, obviously it's not true, but why do people treat it as therapy?
Well, when you identify with something, that's why we do the podcast, right? We try to kind of help individuals connect to something psychological that some of the characters are going through. So it's a backdoor into helping people process grief or trauma or those types of emotions. So I think the emotional stimulation or that symbolic processing is what they look for. And that's what Romantasy offers sometimes. So I think they identify with the characters. They project their own fears or desires into the stories. They may experience kind of like a catharsis when they're reading. They can explore different attachment styles or dynamics and in a safe place because it's in a different reality. They temporarily regulate their emotions through immersion into someone else's story. I think there's some of the same outcomes that people find, but the process is very different. So therapy is very relational and individualized. It's also clinically guided and intentional. So you focus on real life patterns and change, where, like I said before, Romantasy is more of an emotional stimulation. So it's not as intentional, which is still great for some people feeling that they want to also escape, because that's what people do. They want to escape from their reality. But I think it also teaches us different ways to handle, like we were talking about before, like handle conflict or handle emotions in a relationship. And remember how we talked a little bit before about the other books, how people handle different attraction or sex or agency. And when you're starting to think about, wow, this person's going through the same thing I'm going through, it kind of gives you that power to be able to stand up and do the same thing as maybe the character.
Yeah.
So.
I like what you mentioned about escape, because we have a question about the escape. Yes. And the question is Romantasy escapism or something deeper? And when I was thinking about this question, I thought, well, all reading is escapism, right? To some extent. Like the moment you pick up fiction, you're stepping into another reality for a while. Like it doesn't have to be fantasy, like any fiction. But at the same time, I think we use the word escapism much more negatively when we talk about fantasy or romantasy specifically. There's often like this implication that people are reading these books to avoid the real world. At least that's how I feel. I don't know, maybe you have a different opinion, but honestly, I mean, as we said, like a lot of romantasy readers joke about, books being their therapy. But for me personally, though, I don't think it's really about avoiding reality. Like I always loved fantasy and adventure stories because I just enjoy imagining and, different worlds and the world building and emotionally intense experiences that just don't exist in the ordinary life. And I also don't think escapism automatically means something emotionally shallow. Like people form their very real emotional connections to these stories or characters or the worlds. That's my take on the escapism and romantasy.
Yeah, I mean, this was my entry point because my friend had sent me Fourth Wing and I had started reading it in little bits, but then I got, reinfected with long COVID. It got really bad. My mother-in-law suddenly got diagnosed with cancer and we were so close, and my husband had to leave to go be with her in her last, she had days. We suddenly went from her being totally fine traveling around the world to you're going to die in a couple of days. And so my husband left and I was home alone for 6 weeks without him. And this was like the first kind of real big death that we'd ever experienced as well. We've been very, very fortunate up until that point to have a lot of the people. My uncle had unfortunately just died like a week before. So it was suddenly all this stuff all converging at once. And I sort of was up to that midway point in Fourth Wing where everything suddenly really kicks off. And I just disappeared and it was incredible. And I was just I was like, what is this magic? I didn't know it was called escapism. I sort of didn't have a word for it that the book was doing for me in that moment of time, because then during my days or at night, I could just sit and read. And I would just be somewhere else for a while. And that's when I realized I was like, oh, I need to the books were ending and I was like, I can't have this end. I need to keep this going. So I was writing a children's fantasy book while I had long COVID, and I suddenly switched into, I was like, oh no, I need to write this. And I think, yeah, at that time, again, whether it's healthy or unhealthy or therapy or not therapy, like it was helpful for me. And I think if I had been sitting in reality in that moment, it would have just been like the worst 6 weeks. Whereas actually it was a completely different time for me. And now it's a bit different because I'm obviously like, I'm writing the books and it's still there. And I still have long COVID, which means my life is still very much, limited. And I do use it as a way to kind of escape from the limitness of what I have. So I don't know if when I'm feeling healthy again, whether I'll use it in the same way. Yeah, it's very interesting. But actually, once I finish this trilogy, I've got an idea for another book I want to write where I really want to sort of explore this from an actual perspective, where I want to do a contemporary fantasy romance where I have the protagonist is set in the modern day. She comes across a book, but the book itself is magical and she falls into a fantasy romance story. And we get to sort of explore all these actual themes that we're discussing like right now in the podcast through her perspective, because she's actually living this and what her friend, and all the things that happen to her and why she's connecting with the characters and everything. And she kind of falls in and out of the story every night that she picks it up, she falls back into it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what Kat has to say about it from a more psychological perspective.
No, that's a beautiful perspective, because that's exactly what's happening actually. Because escapism doesn't have to mean anything shallow. It doesn't have to be negative, and it doesn't have to be unhealthy. It's almost the imagination and can almost be a temporary distance from stress. So stories always serve that purpose, and that's exactly what you're using it for, as a coping mechanism. And I mean, we escape, but we don't completely dissociate from reality. We escape from it, but that's our coping mechanism. So Romantasy often goes beyond that simple distraction, because readers aren't just escaping from something, they're also emotionally moving towards something. So it could be towards connection or meaning or hope, transformation, belonging, emotional intensity, or safety. And that's why these books feel so emotionally impactful. And then also fantasy creates emotional distance from people to feel safe to explore some difficult emotions. So that's the other, like you were talking about, grief, fear, vulnerability, loneliness, anger, desire, so that it's often a little bit easier when you're escaping from this reality that we're living in to engage with those themes, but they're wrapped in more like dragons and magic and kingdoms. So it's a little bit, it's mirrored in real life, but it's not actual real life. Most importantly, readers aren't escaping reality entirely. They're processing emotions through fantasy. So, for example, someone lonely might resonate with a found family, or someone healing may connect with those transformational arcs. So someone struggling emotionally might find comfort in devotion or emotional safety. Sometimes people think escapism means avoiding emotions, when actually fantasy can become a very safe place to experience emotions.
Ooh, this makes me feel so much better as well. I was almost starting to worry, as I'm writing, am I avoidant? And yeah.
No, and I think because I'm big in the brain and making dendrites and, making sure that your pathways in your brain start to build. I think that's also what your imagination does. Building those dendrites, and the imagination dendrites are just the ability to take in more information, right? So the more you expand them, it increases the ability to take in more information as well. So it's helping you on so many different levels, I think. Physically, cognitively, and emotionally.
Yeah, thanks. Because it's always like, when you hear the word escape, you kind of like, as if people want to escape their lives, and they just want to like bury themselves in the book and like not even, think about their responsibilities, which actually does happen, when people kind of, it's a bit addictive, isn't it? Like, or it can be a bit addictive when you're just sitting there.
100%. I mean, that's why we take a vacation, right? We take a vacation from our reality. We go somewhere and refresh and recoup and, try to reconnect with ourselves so that we can come back into our lives and our daily routines.
I love
That's
it.
so interesting.
Romantasy is a vacation.
It's a vacation from our problems.
I was studying when I was doing my postgrad at business school. I was looking at the transformational experiences that we have on vacations and why, like, we can actually. I was looking at behavioral change basically, and yeah, that's so fascinating that if we actually look at it from a vacation, like we go into the book and you get that distance from your real life, and then you can sort of come back and implement some of those behaviors. Maybe not the fighting dragons, but like the underlying messages and means.
Yeah.
We can pretend they're dragons. I mean, sometimes I think the subway or the tube is more of a dragon, so I have to fight.
But to be honest, we do. I implement some of the stuff, and I actually told Catherine that it happened about a month ago, and I had very unpleasant experience when somebody had a go at me, and I Kat's nodding. She remember that.
Yeah, I do remember.
And I thought about Imogen. And I was like, Imogen would have just turned around and just told these people exactly what she thought. And every time I was thinking about that woman I had this an unfortunate incident with, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to imagine myself as Imogen. Like every time.
Channel your inner Imogen. Just channel her. Just do it.
Yeah. That's actually talking about conflict as well.
It is. Well, that's...
Yep.
Yes. Romantasy helps.
It's a cultural thing too, I think, sometimes. And I was on the tube just last night, and I was very inquisitive in, being an American in a different culture, because we're polite, but we don't hold back, right? So there was a gentleman that was probably on drugs, saying, why is this person's dog running free in the subway or in the tube? And I was like, the dog has a collar, right? It's like, we're not imagining this, right? The dog has a collar, and well, he's not on a leash. And we're like, well, there's a leash right there. And he just like almost went off on me. And the girl goes, don't engage, don't engage, don't engage. And the tube stopped, and we all got off really fast. And he started poking fun at my jacket. And I thought, now I know you're high, because my jacket's amazing. So I was thinking of that, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's when you don't want to have your inner Imogen come out. You want to be quiet and just
bite your
away.
tongue, right? Now you defended the doggy.
I really did, and I defended all those girls that were with the dogs.
I think of some book characters who are similar to this guy. And no, it's not Dane.
Well, it's never Dane. They're really going to bring him back? Okay, never mind. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep reading.
Yep. Okay, so the next question is...
Oh, yes. We're back at the questions.
Back to questions. What makes a fantasy world or character emotionally unforgettable? So, for me, as a reader, I think that characters become emotionally unforgettable when there is something deeply relatable about them, right? Mm-hmm. So, maybe they go through the same thing you've experienced yourself, or they react to things in a very human way, and suddenly you emotionally connect with them, right? Or sometimes it's also characters breaking stereotypes or surprising you in some way, and sometimes it's simply good writing. That's what I have to say. But to be honest, like, I connected to Violet in Fourth Wing very quickly because of that entry scene with her sister and her mother, because I just saw my family there. Like,
it's so funny.
My mother, that's my sister, and this is me, because I'm the youngest and I'm much younger than my older sister. So when I saw Violet in that situation, I was like, oh, I like this girl. Like, I can relate to her. Like, I know exactly how she feels. She's like, okay, what are we doing? Where are you sending me now? Because that was my childhood. Right.
Yeah.
That's my perspective, I think, as a reader. But then obviously characters who I adore those who are different from me as well, you know, and I was like, oh, I wish I was a little bit more like them, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Imogen, you know, or I mean, there are plenty, to be honest. Every book I read, there is somebody there. I mean, I'm just gonna keep going about Ray. Like that's the character that pops up in my head all the time now. And just for our listeners, this is from Becky's second book.
which has now caused a bit of controversy, which is,
I
Oh.
I'll have
know.
to touch on that later. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we definitely should talk about that
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
was interesting. Yeah.
I, the character one though is fascinating, like what makes them not forgettable. I think, like you said, yeah, if you can relate to them in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and I think relate to them in a way where they're similar to you, or you want you're projecting onto them. I think, like Kat said, like sometimes, like, well, there's a lot of characters that I write or I read about, and I think, like, if I could be a little bit more like that. And sometimes I think when they become unforgettable is maybe when you do implement some of that stuff into your life. And then I was watching a podcast the other day, and they were talking. It was the author of The Life of Pi, and he was talking about he writes a lot of animals into his books. And actually, when I think about the characters sometimes that stay with me, a lot of them actually aren't people. A lot of them can be animals or inanimate objects or something. So if we think about Project Hail Mary and Rocky, I don't know if you've read it yet, but Rocky is this alien made of
So
rock.
sweet.
And
Yeah.
he is the best character. And I think, you know, when we think of probably other fantasy stories as well, and I hopefully in my books, when we explore more of the dragons become really big characters. And he made a really fascinating point about when we are reading and we're presented with a person, it comes with a lot of biases. You know, we look at the person of what gender they are, what ethnicity they are, what age they are, and either we then do form a connection to it, which can be quite strong, or we can sort of not because we come with sort of prejudice or past experience with a person that it reminds us of. Whereas with an animal, we're that much further detached. So he was talking about, you know, like Animal Farm and books like that, where we want to be able to look at things. If when you suddenly put animals involved, you can sort of step back and you can give the animals actual personalities and people you can actually see both. You can have, you know, an animal that usually if it was a person we would hate, but we can now show them in a different light and things. So I found that really fascinating. Because I think I connect with a lot of the animals in books and I hadn't really thought about it before.
I'm thinking exactly what you're saying. Like that's readers, they project parts of themselves into characters, just like you were both saying. Sometimes readers love characters. They're like, that feels like me. That's what I do, or that's what I would say, or that feels like who I wish I could be. Just exactly what you said. And that's, I think, the contradiction creates that fascination sometimes. So sometimes psychologically, humans are drawn to complexity. So dangerous but gentle, emotionally guarded but deeply loyal, powerful but vulnerable, morally gray but loving. You know, so those contradictions kind of keep readers emotionally engaged because the brain naturally tries to resolve complexity. And then there's those obviously the attachment dynamics as well.
Yeah.
But basically, I think the most unforgettable fantasy characters often hold a mirror to the parts of ourselves that we don't always recognize consciously.
Ooh.
There is a character from one of the books in the series that I absolutely adore. The series is the Kindred's Curse saga, and the character is Diem. She's the FMC, and there are people who really don't like her. You know, they say that they love the series, but they don't like her. And I absolutely love her because to me she's so real. Like, and I think I see parts of myself and not necessarily parts that I love, you know, but she's doing stuff that she shouldn't be doing. Like
With Nesta.
Nesta. Yes, Nesta. How many
You know, people hate
don't
her,
get
but
her?
we all have some Nesta inside of us.
And that's what people saying, right? You don't like her if you never met anybody or you didn't go through phase like that. But Nestie's a brilliant character. Like, she's amazing. She's so raw, you know. And then when I was reading Kindred's Curse Saga, I was so frustrated is not the word, but I was on my own in my house listening to the audiobook and out loud screaming like, no, don't do it, don't do it, you know. That's how I was involved into this. And then she obviously does it, you know, and I'm like, oh, well, I would have done the same. It's like, because I totally understand where she's coming from. And yes, these are the characters you connect with, and these are the characters you feel passionate, and you're invested into the story. You want to know what's going to happen next to them. So yes, thank you to all the authors.
Hey,
Yes, you guys are amazing.
I think I was just thinking about that as well, about what makes characters enjoyable just generally. And as a writer, one of the things you've constantly got to try and have your protagonist be proactive and be taking action and not becoming really passive. And it's so hard because you can really easily have them just slip into passive reaction and just have the world happen around them. And I think sometimes if you read a character and you're unsure, why don't I like them? Why aren't I connected with them? And if you look and see, wait, hold on one second, are they just allowing things around them to happen? Or are they actively making conscious decisions? And it's, even if the conscious decision is I am going to not do anything, you still need to actively put that on the page to let the reader know she's being proactively passive, or they or him or whoever the character is. And that's really interesting. Like, there's so many dynamics that go into trying to make a character. Like, yeah. And I think with Nesta, compared to Feyre, when I read it, I was really worried that I would hate Nesta because I'd heard so much already before I dove into Silver Flames. But then it was the opposite. I actually, she's my favorite now. And I was thinking about it and I was like, well, yeah, she's kind of rude and sassy, but she's really, really proactive. You know, she's constantly making decisions. Even if her decision is to shut down, you can see that she's making that decision on the page. And I think it's a really satisfying read for me anyway.
Yeah. My goodness, what are we gonna get in Agatha 6? What Elaine is going to do? Because let's face it, it's gonna be about Elaine.
Yeah, it's got to be a forbidden romance, right, between her and Azrael. I hope anyway.
No.
No, you don't. What?
No.
What do you want? What?
I want Elaine and Lucian.
Oh, really?
Yep. No, I want Azrael with Gwen. And no, Elaine and Azrael. No way. No.
okay.
Ooh, I love this. See, I love the conflict. And this is so amazing how subjective reading is when you come in and two people have been given the same bit of information. And
this,
we want...
Catherine, this is the biggest, probably, or one of the biggest debates in social media around Agatha
the book
6.
One.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because, yeah, that is very interesting. I actually want Elaine to be single. I don't want Elaine to be with anybody. I want her to just go, because she's tied to Lucian. I'm sorry we said we're not going to be discussing books, one book in particular. But Elaine is tied to Lucian, and then there is a third,
a fated
bad
mate.
boy. She can be with him as well, because her sisters are with the other two. But I want her to go and choose totally different somebody. I want Lucian to be happy. He's my favorite character. Lucian is my favorite character at the moment. I want him to be happy, but I want Elaine just to go and just do something totally different. Everybody looks at her like she's the weakest one, this flower. I just want her to go and prove everybody wrong and just become the queen.
Becky, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want something different to happen? You think people are going to be like, Katya, I can't believe she wants to do that.
I honestly, if it's written well, I don't mind. And I think I love trying to pull the rug out from under people with things. And I've got some stuff I love being able to try. I've got some challenges for myself to try and take characters that people hate or people love and try and completely flip it. And so if she can, and if Sarah in her writing can make a really good argument for that case, then I think it would be a fantastic read. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you in terms of that. If it's written well, like then if it's yeah, even if it's I don't want Azrael, but again, if it's written well, and Elaine is with Azrael at the end, it works for me. And that's why when I chat to authors and we talk about like where the character journey is going, and I tell them, especially the author I love, and I'm like, even if the FMC or MMC die in the end, like I trust you. I know you're gonna make it work. It's gonna be good. Like it's gonna make sense. It's gonna be, it's gonna be painful, but it's gonna make sense. It's not gonna be just for shock value. Good authors, they just do it so well. And Sarah obviously is amazing. So yeah. All right. Next question. Catherine's like, oh my God, what's going on?
Gonna keep listening.
Why has Romantasy exploded right now? And I blame, well, I think it's social media, because it plays a huge role in it, because people don't read books privately anymore. You experience them together, and Romantasy is also incredibly easy to like become emotionally obsessed with. So we have, I mean, how many Bookstagram accounts? We've got book talks, people constantly sharing what they are reading, their opinions, posting ratings, etc. And actually, that's how I got into Romantasy, because I heard about Fourth Wing on another podcast. It's called What the Hype? And they just discuss all the trends. So if you don't have time to watch TV shows, read new books, new movies, they will tell you all about it and then decide, whether it's worth the hype or not. But I find it very useful because I never have time to watch TV series like Bridgerton, etc. But I know what it is because I listen to the podcast. So in one of the episodes, they mentioned Fourth Wing. And, they talk about dragons. They talk about, I was like, oh, great. So I got the book and I got the audio book and I started listening to it. As your phone does, my phone picked up on what I was doing and started throwing me stuff on social media, on Fourth Wing, and then other Romantasy, and then, Akatar, and all the book podcasts and everything. And I was like, what? There's more? What's happening? And that's how I discovered this whole world of Romantasy genre. I've never, really didn't think about it before. So I think social media.
That's good. I hadn't even thought of that, but I think you're so right. And I think one of the things that social media also brings with it, though, when we think about Romantasy, especially compared to, say, like another book, is there's so many. I think, well, Kat, I'd love to know your opinion on this, but I feel like, again, if you can experience, like chocolate apparently tastes better when you're sharing it with somebody else versus if you're eating it alone. Like they've done studies on things like that. And then Instagram took off so much because if you can take a photo and share that experience with somebody else, we get some type of hit from it. And so I think, if you can read a book and then instantly talk about it with a community, it makes everything so much more real. But then I think to your point, also with social media, when I went on there after reading Fourth Wing, there wasn't just other people talking about it. There was the art, all the illustrations that people had made that suddenly made this book so much more real in my head. And then there was all the music. And you think about Alex Warren and his songs, like the power of book talk is not just with, his career now. It hinges on like that foundation that book talk built around him. Yeah, that's crazy. So I hadn't thought about that, but it's true. And I just, I think also just where we are in the moment of time, there's so much, there's not really been much media made for women by women in the past. There's sometimes movies that are meant to be, but you can tell it's written by a guy, and especially maybe romance before contemporary, but now being able to mix it more with that fantasy world. And it's just like this amalgamation of sort of like the perfect storm. And like word of mouth, it's just sort of accelerated it so quickly. Whereas a book usually, like, it will take a long time, but because this community is so gathered around it and there's so many other things around it that can just keep that fire going, Yeah.
Yeah, plus it's the thing to keep reading. Like that's the key. The ticket is to have all the books. Because even in Instagram and social media, and they talk about, well, if you've got this book, then you're going to have to get this book, and then you're going to have the library of the books. So it's a constant. I think it's great too because it's promoting reading. What a better way to stimulate our brain and to keep us going, but to read, right? But you guys have both hit the nail on the head. I really think that. I think we're not just looking for entertainment. We're looking for some emotional experience, and anything that connects people to other people is very, like Katya knows. Well, because I love Taylor Swift. So when you go to the Eras tour, and if anyone that's been to the Eras tour and saw that concert, it is literally life-changing because you have a stadium of people that it's nothing but love and connection and emotional connection. And when you feel it, when you hear songs or you feel it and you're going through something, just like you're reading in the Romantasy novels, you're feeling it yourself. But when you're in a whole stadium of people that are feeling the same way, there's an energy there that is magic. And I think that's what this does. It stimulates that part of your brain, that comfort, that identity, that safety within chaos on a collective level. So that's why I love picking up. Like, I follow a lot of different types of influencers, from just men that are comedy, hilarious, different to women, and other children and dancers. But it's so funny because every now and then you'll see them just move into the Romantasy novels, and one of the guys was reading Fourth Wing, and now the men are doing it. So it's something that's just caught on, and I think it's just one of those things that I just love it when those waves of community go through. I'm a big trend person, not because I have to be in with all the trends. I just love it when people come together and join together. So I love that community spirit. So I just love joining with the fashion, with the moment, with the hype, because it just makes me feel like I'm part of something magic, And I love that energy when people come together. So yeah, you guys hit it right on the head. And social media has just expanded it into the world. Like we're in the UK, the Cayman Islands, and New Zealand talking about Romantasy. All over the world, we're talking about it. Yeah.
I also think just the world we live in at the moment, there's so many things happening. You do, going back to escapism.
I was going to touch on it, but I
get into the book, right?
Yeah.
You know what? There's so many things going on. You don't have to touch on any particular stuff. You can
it's
just
all over. It's everywhere.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
to bring in a little bit of joy and connection that's fun and exciting and adventurous, it takes us away from the reality of what's going on. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So the last question is, it's a tough one. Why do people dismiss Romantasy so easily? And I think that a lot of people dismiss Romantasy without actually reading it. The genre itself often gets reduced to things like smut online, which completely ignores the world building, the character development, emotional storytelling, and also, unfortunately, I think that anything that becomes extremely popular with women tends to get mocked a little bit. But I also think that people who are often uncomfortable with emotionally driven stories in general, they would dismiss, Romantasy, because it's very open, right? About feelings, this emotional intensity, vulnerability, everything is just felt very deeply and openly. But then we all watched Game of Thrones, right? And nobody questioned that. Or, nobody questioned dragons or unrealistic action scenes in male-dominated fantasy genres. But the moment emotion becomes central, people suddenly stop talking about the Romantasy as a genre seriously. I think it's that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because in movies, especially like fantasy, like relationships and sex is quite dominant in a lot of the really popular and famous movies out there. There's usually like really big lines, and there's usually pretty graphic sex scenes as well. But it's so strange and interesting that if it's on the written page versus in a movie, then it's suddenly, yeah, lesser than. I don't really know. I tried to think about this one. And I think sometimes it's just taste as well. My husband decided to pick up Fourth Wing and see what the fuss
Oh
is all
yeah, I'm
about.
excited about that. What
Yeah.
what does he think?
And I mean, he's just like, it's just not for me. He's reading it and he's like following along, but he's just like, he isn't, because sometimes, even though it is fantasy based, like you can have things be more leaning into like the romance, or it can lean, like they can lean more heavily either way. And yeah, for him, he was just sort of like, yeah, I'm reading it, but like he loves like Murakami, but just there's a lot of people with different tastes. Yeah, I don't know. I think there are a lot of people that just seem to just have an issue with graphic, detailed scenes on page, which is really strange again, because we would go to the cinema and we would watch it, but we don't want to read it. Yeah.
What does your husband think about Veins of Power?
He was great. So he read, but it's interesting because he reads all of my chapters before I release them, but he's never read the full book. But it is really good because it isn't his genre and it's not something he would naturally pick up. He's a great person because he spots continuity issues, and if I can keep him engaged, then I hopefully, then I feel like I'm onto something. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you ladies are both correct. Again, it's culturally, I think you're right. It's a matter of taste. But like I was telling you before, I think a lot of the husbands or boyfriends are talking about it, and some of them are really getting into it because they're not as influenced, or they're I would say they're more secure in their masculinity. I would say that because people rarely mock like that emotional immersion when they're obsessing over the sports teams and they're, bringing down the stadium, or they're crying over. I know I have friends that if the team is losing, they turn off the TV, like they're miserable for like hours. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. I think it's so fun to watch how men can just be so emotional over a team that's losing this in the sport. But the second women have obsess over some kind of fantasy romance, then it's just like, okay, you can't be emotional over that.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I just think it's a cultural thing too, and it definitely prioritizes emotions and desire and fantasy. But I thought it would be way more sex. I thought it'd be way more sex and more. I'm not seeing that. I'm actually reading the story and thinking, I mean, I totally dig dragons, like totally dig them. So I'm just like, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the fights. I love combat and I love war and trying to figure out different types of, ways to escape from a certain type of situation. So I love those pieces. And that's to me what I read most, but maybe that's because that's what I like. So I tend to focus more on those. And then when it's more of the romantasy stuff, it's great, it's fine. But I don't tend to Katya knows I'm just like, okay, just keep reading. But then, okay, yeah, you get together. Yeah, that's okay. Push me, pull me. Okay, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think, okay, that's done. But I'm waiting for the next battle or the next combat or the next dragon to show up, So I think maybe that's for men, it's definitely, you have to be really secure to be able to be okay with that. And in our culture, in our world today, it's a slow movement, but it's definitely moving forward.
I don't. It's hard as well because fantasy romance, romantic fantasy, romantasy is, because it's become so popular, the spectrum has broadened so much as to what you're actually going to experience.
Yes.
And even when I put my book on Amazon, at first I put romantasy, And I've actually changed it to epic fantasy romance because, because it is a product and you want to meet expectations. I wanted readers to go in with that this is a fantasy-driven romance versus a romance-driven fantasy. And then I think people are going in with different expectations of how much smut or what is integral. And I really wanted to lean into the plot and have it be a standalone in itself throughout the whole trilogy. So I think, when guys, if other people come across it, depending on what they read or what they experience, first of all, if it is a very, very heavily romance-led fantasy that doesn't have all that other stuff in it, like, then they might dismiss it because if they're just not into romance or
I like, well, when I read the first with Fourth Wing, it doesn't start out immediately with romance, so you're just like, okay, when are they gonna finally get together? Lord, like, come on. But with yours, it was like boom, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. But then it left, and I was like, wait, but now it's gone. Like, it's gone forever. Like, I haven't, like, when it, well, at least she keeps saying his name, but you know what I mean? So that was funny for me, because at first I thought, oh gosh, this book's going to be like this. And it wasn't at all. Yeah. And then it just got really into the story. And now I'm just like, oh, she's going to have to see him. I know she's going to see him again, But then, I want her to get together with the other one because it's the haters to lovers and that old trope. And I'm like, okay, she's going to get together with the other girl now. And, so it's funny.
Yeah. Never know.
I think when I was writing it, I think I wanted to make a very small little promise on the first page as to the tone of the book. But I love a slow burn. Like, if there is...
Oh, you made it. You made that at the beginning.
If there's instant... If they're doing it on, like, the second or third or fourth page or even fourth chapter, I'm just kind of like... I'm not...
The thing is that I want to read a book. I mean, I love slow burn for the same reason, but I do want to find a book where they do it on, like, chapter 4. Yeah.
I don't love a slow burn. Just FYI for you guys, as information. I do not like a slow burn at all. Is it at any given time and moment in life. I said it. Okay. Don't like it in the books. Don't like it in life. Don't like it.
But you don't love the payoff when it happens? Are you just frustrated?
No. I'm frustrated the whole time. Like, God, when I just want it. Like, I want to start from the back, from the end. Katya knows. Just tell me. I'm not going to read the last few pages.
You know what? I'm just so excited about this because, like, you're gonna love it. Like, it's just hearing about this book. Like, you have no idea what's gonna happen.
I know, and I'm sitting here like, oh, I gotta finish reading it, and I'm just like, I just keep going, and I do a lot of things in life, and reading is not one of them in real books. So I'm like waiting for the Audible, because when the Audible comes out again, I'm gonna read it again, obviously, because that's easy for me. I can just put it on when I'm in the shower, when I'm getting ready, when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning. I got the book just going, Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing with Romantasy as well. Is like the Audible, like that is a big thing for a lot of women. Like I've tried. I can't listen to a Romantasy book on Audible because I feel like I have to create it my own fully. I have to read it. It's really, that's quite fascinating, and I find there's a big group of. You can do Audible, Katya, as well?
I do Audible, yes. I do Audible a lot, and I agree with you in terms of that you have to be careful about it. I just listened to a book that is very, very popular. People rave about it, and I didn't read the physical copy. I listened to it. I thought it was so boring. And I wondered if part of this is the narration. The narration is very mellow. Like the female narrator is very mellow. The male narrator is very growly all the time. Like all the time. Do you have just non-growly voice or like less growly? So you don't really get into it because you don't really. I didn't really feel that connection with the characters. And I mean there are other issues with the book as well. But I do wonder if the I would have overlooked it if I, read it in
Yeah.
like in my head. But then there are books that narration is like a must. You absolutely must.
Oh, what's a
And
must?
I think
Which one's a must?
Which was the best?
Yeah, what's a must? What should we put on our list?
Blood of Hercules.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
you just
really?
said that to me. You just said that to my sister, didn't you?
I just said that to your sister. I said
Yeah.
that to Kat's sister today on our group chat.
We have a book reading group chat, and they talk about it, and I just wave and smile and be like, "Go!"
That's pretty
team."
much how it is, yeah. But yes, Blood of Hercules. You have to do audiobook because that's just brilliant.
I have to say I love reading this book. I mean, I love that it challenged me that I didn't have the audio because I actually love reading. I still remember like The Outsiders and To Kill a Mockingbird, and that was Then This Is Now. Like I still remember that vividly, those books, and it's because I literally read them before Audible came out, right? But this book, I know I've absorbed a lot more. Once I got into it, now I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't want to put it down, and like, oh, I'm at my stop. Okay, so now I just find myself wanting to go travel. I'm like, I gotta run to London Bridge. Like, I'm gonna go up to Birmingham. Just it's only a
Make
3-hour
excuses.
train ride. I'm like, I'll do it. I got a book to read. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
But going
great.
back to our discussion, one thing I wanted to say as well about the dismissal of romantasy and why men might not like it. I think it's the emotional side. It's like how much people discuss their feelings, how much, all characters, female and male, they talk about their feelings. They talk about why they're making certain decisions. They talk it in their heads or they talk to their friends, something. And I feel that maybe that's not necessarily true in the real life, especially maybe for men, and they just can't relate to that.
Yeah, I think
They do feel that. I don't think they talk about it, but I think they do feel it. And I think sometimes for men, it is difficult because they have society has made us to have to be a certain way, and especially in different cultures, and that's just a given. And if you fight against what culture and what society says about you, you have to be really either very secure and very famous, or very, you've got to be able to know yourself and have a really good group around you. Because I see it all over, but you're 100% right. They definitely need to. Yeah. And some just aren't aware, but I don't think some women are aware either. So, I mean, I'm not just on the men. I think some women wouldn't like this either. And that's just because maybe they just don't like that, or they don't want to be, a lot of women have some sexual trauma history or explicit sexual history, and they might not feel comfortable even, being around that. So I think that would be the case too with some women as well.
Yeah, that's true. We all have our limits, and boundaries, I suppose. Talking about boundaries, do you want to talk about it?
Oh yes, freedom, expression.
So this took me completely by. So I write my books chapter by chapter, and I release them to my alpha readers. It's just like, I don't think I could do it any other way now. It's just the most fun. I get this instant feedback. If I left it to the full book. So we're on book 2 and we're up to chapter 13, and it is my favorite chapter so far. Like I've actually cut it into 2 parts now, so it'll be chapter 13 and chapter 14. And I was trying to think of ways where we're just not repeating the same spice over and over, so that book 2 is different, that the slow burn continues, and we have just the same amount of excitement as we did in book 1. And so I just wanted a bit more diversity. So we have a girl-on-girl scene that, it makes sense to the plot, and it makes sense afterwards when you figure out why and what's actually happened. And when I released it to the readers, I was hit with some very different reactions that I was not expecting, because a lot of these readers have been reading along since book 1, or they've read book 1 and they've joined and they're now reading along. Book 2, we have about 70 people in the group, and people ebb and flow and catch up as and when. But yeah, I was just surprised at all that people had the reaction that they were not at all. Like, I got personal DMs saying I was not comfortable with that chapter. And they were not happy about it, and they were not happy that I put it in there. And so I asked them why, and they just were not happy to read about any girl on girl stuff, and they did not want that in their books. No, thank you. And I think what shocked me the most wasn't that I understand if you're more conservative, if you don't want to read about that, I'm not going to try and force you to. But what I found so confusing was that they had read all of book 1 and all of book 2 so far, which has very graphic, violence and sex scenes and all this other stuff that apparently they are comfortable with. But as soon as there was a very mild girl
and it was
on girl
very
scene,
mild.
it was pretty mild.
It was very mild, yeah.
Then suddenly that's what made them feel uncomfortable. And I think for me, it was a juxtaposition, the contrast, or the of all the other stuff didn't make me uncomfortable. The gore, the torture, the other things that in real life should make us feel uncomfortable. Yet suddenly this scene was the thing that pushed you over and was like, nope, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave and I'm not going to read this anymore. And I found that so interesting, just that contrast. Yeah.
I have a theory about that.
Okay.
I'd love to hear it.
I mean, I don't know. Okay. So I teach a class on human sexualities, right? And there's a movie called The Kinsey Scale. I don't know if you've heard of the movie, but Liam Neeson it's a gentleman, Kinsey, that created this scale of attraction. And he does this sociological study of these types of insects. And he's very geniusy, very mindy, but does this, and he's a very broad thinker in sexuality. So it's, if you're going to watch the movie, you have to have a little bit more of an open mind. But he talks about that attraction isn't just, just black and white, male and female, and so, again, I'll probably get backlash for this, but when someone's confronted with something that either society is reacting to or they're uncomfortable with because maybe they've had feelings, like, even I always tell kids, when you're in your teens, you're like, am I gay? Am I not gay? Am I straight? Am I attracted to women? Am I attracted to men? Because I think we go through this adolescent period of attraction where, how Katy Perry's song came out, I kissed a girl and I liked it. Oh my gosh, does that mean I'm a lesbian? And relax. We have attraction. I love women. I think women are beautiful. If I could choose to be gay, I would choose it because, men are difficult, but so are women. And I guess we're all difficult, but it's not the choice. I love men. I love them. And I love everything about them. And it's the curse I bear. Right. So but I'm not going to go to a woman on woman, scene and be like, oh my God, I'm just not going to. I'm just going to be like, okay, it's not my thing. I'm not attracted to that, but you're going to get a lot of male readers. You get a lot of men in there going, yeah, so, hey, but I think that sometimes we're uncomfortable about things that we might have either had some feeling about or some controversy in ourselves about, or if society doesn't accept it and it's, maybe not be morally correct in the way we were raised, we're going to have a reaction. That's a good thing. I think a reaction is a good thing. And I think it's something that's good to have a conversation about, because then we can talk about, our feelings and our sexuality and why we're feeling this way. And it helps us grow as humans. I'm certainly not ashamed of who I am, and I'm not ashamed to say how beautiful women are and how beautiful men are, because we're humans, and that's, we're human beings. I'm not going to be in a relationship with women per se, because that's not my attraction, but I'm certainly not going to, I'm just going to read through it and be like, oh, okay. I mean, I might be like, whatever, but that would be the same if I had. That's the same what I do. When I'm seeing the man and the women too, I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's not. I'm not really. I'd rather be doing it myself, than reading about it. So, might give me some ideas. I don't know. But, I'm thinking that's my own personal thing. But because I talk to so many people and I have so many clients that have different, spheres of attraction, and to normalize it and be like, okay, this is something that some people have chosen and some people haven't. It just helps us kind of get through talking with others and communication and connection better. Whereas I think others just are very uncomfortable with just in general because of maybe the way, like I said, they're raised or the way that they feel inside. They could have been tending to be more towards that or have an attraction and not know how to handle it as well.
So do you think it was like more confronting personally? Because the interesting bit obviously is like that there's other things in the story that are not morally fine and that should not happen
Exactly
in society. But this is the thing that tips them over the edge, and it's not acceptable because it confronts something deeply personal
inside them. Yes. And that's what you were saying, because murder is not good.
Yeah.
And neither is like a deception and lying and like savage murder, there's a lot of that. And so when you're looking at that in relationships to other things, and, I think society in the whole, we tend to say, okay, this is all right. I mean, you see what society's doing now in relationship to those things. I think we just have to really be on top of the questioning. I always question, why am I having a reaction to that? And where do I feel that in my body? And if we take a step back and think about that and go, why am I having a reaction to this? Then we can kind of have the conversation with ourselves and with others and really grow through that. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to allow others to question, why do I have this reaction and what do I feel about it? And why do I feel this way about it? It's perfectly okay to not agree with things and to not have those feelings. Let's just have the conversation. Let's open it up and have the conversation about it and see what's going on for me,
Yeah.
I think it's
No, I
a good
agree.
thing.
Yeah, and it's a good opportunity to check yourself, just to stop and think about it. Because I recently read, this is the first time actually I read a girl and girl scene. Never seen that before. But I did.
I think that's the first time I've read and wrote one.
So I read a few gay scenes, and some of them were so beautiful, and there was so much emotion and there's so much passion, and there was some that I really didn't like, and I was like, why am I having this reaction? It's because one of the characters was not a good guy. I didn't want them to get together, so I was irritated that it happened because but I kind of stopped and I thought about it, like, why am I having this? And to be honest, it's not like you have to enjoy a sex scene all the time. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm doing dishes and I'm listening to this and I'm just like tuned out completely. Like I have no idea what's happening there.
Well,
You don't have to be into it.
I think Schitt's Creek wrote those scenes so well. I think they did it. It's just they didn't have a lot of the sex scenes, but they had the relationships. And I thought same-sex relationship, that I thought they did that really well. And then, but I mean, it's obviously not romantasy, but then isn't the hockey movie that's supposed to be really,
I mean,
famous?
Heated Rivalry. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's supposed to be like a big deal. I personally started it and I wasn't really, it was like, okay, I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't like that. I just was like, this isn't really good writing.
Katya's point, I think with Heated Rivalry, I started it and was a bit like, because it goes straight in and it's pretty like, oh, okay. And I had no connection to them. And I was just like, okay, I don't know if I like this. But then, like, as the story, like, by the end, when we actually see them as their characters, and the story, and then the scenes hit so much harder, and I loved it by the end, and I kind of wished it was more of a slow burn, and I think it would have been, I mean, that's just my take, but like I was really surprised at how much I really enjoyed it, because I think in Katy, when you said you didn't enjoy that scene before because you didn't actually like the character at the beginning, I was like, oh, who are these characters? Do I like them? Do I know them? I don't care. And then by the end, because it's only like 6 episodes or something, but I think by the end it's way more emotional between the two of them, right?
Yeah.
And it is so much better. So if you do fancy
You
sticking
have
with
to
it,
continue. Yeah. See, because I had the same reaction with the book, with yours too. It just hit it right on. And it was the same thing with Hated Rivalry. And I just didn't have the time I didn't think the acting was great. Not that, whatever. If maybe it was a book and I was reading, it'd be different. But yeah, for sure. Okay, that's good. I might give them a second chance then.
do.
Yeah, you see, I opened Veins of Power in that first scene. I was like, "Oh right, that I like."
She's like,
that.
I'm hooked. Yeah, she's like, I'm hooked.
There's a cute guy. There is a beautiful girl. Yep. That's it.
Done.
Done.
I think from a writer's perspective, when you start there's a couple of things that you want to have happen within that first chapter or first page. You want your character to be likable. I wanted Lyra, like, to know that she was desirable and that she was, good looking subjectively or whatever that is. And so I could have her stand in front of a mirror and look at herself and describe herself. But I think a better way is like, how do we make Lyra seem desirable and sexually confident? Okay, we put her in a scene where she's with a hot guy who wants her. And so instantly as a reader, we're like, okay, she must be somebody that people want. And she's obviously very confident. And now we know what she looks like. And then we can go save the cat, which is the next thing.
Well, these are all the questions. Thank you very much. That's all we have for today. Becky, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation.
Yes. And before we wrap up, where can our listeners find your book and connect with you?
Yeah. So if you can just go to Amazon and you can
Beautiful.
Veins of Power, Becky Jane Fox. It's on there. It's free on Kindle Unlimited. It's $2.99 on Kindle. There's also paperback and hardback options now. And if you want to follow along me and my writing journey, I try and share a lot of behind the scenes. You can go to Becky Jane Fox at Instagram. And then on there, you can also find the book account where I try and share more of the sort of like teasers and art and things as well. So there's a couple of different ways. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. It really helps us grow. You can find us on Instagram at Minds Over Magic or email us at mindsovermagicpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
And until next time, keep your mind sharp and your heart open.